Huskies, thank you for tuning in to our first ever episode of our podcast, Talk-a-latte, with Jamie and Christian from IPS. We really wanted to showcase another side of IPS, and I'm going to throw it over to Jamie to tell us what the purpose of this podcast is. It's really her baby. She came up with it, and the reason of why we're bringing this for all of you today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are very excited to have this podcast launching to finally. We put a lot of thought and effort into it, and our student worker, Farida, she's done a great job at helping get the process started, getting everything set up. So the main reason why we wanted to look into podcasting is because we know how important information is to our international students and scholars and just the Michigan Tech community in general. And so we thought it would be a good idea to get another type of platform out there to pass along information. I know myself personally, I like reading things to get information, listening to things, and I'm personally a big fan of podcasts. So I thought it would be a cool idea to get this going.
It's a really great idea. And we at IPS really strive for getting communication out there. Now, whether you listen to it or read it, we know that you do not sometimes, but it's out there for you to have. We have something visual. We do a lot with our YouTube channel. We have things always, of course, that you can read on our website and our International Husky that comes out every week. And now this just is a new layer to that, to be able to listen to us too. So if you haven't had enough of us, then here's an extra thing. But Jamie, I want to ask you, and I want to toss it over to our producer, Farida, in a little bit, with the biggest question that we got. When we are doing these episodes, we're sending out Google Forms to ask us questions, to give us ideas for what you want to know, who you want to see on this, because it really is about you. And the biggest question is, who are we? Right? Who are we? How did we get into this role? What is our history? So, Jamie, tell me about yourself, and then I'll introduce myself to you back. So, tell me what brought you to IPS, what brought you into this field, and a little bit of your history.
Yeah, so that is such a simple question, but I feel like that could be one of the hardest questions to answer, just because there's so much you can talk about. But I guess I'll start with the beginning, as you could say. So I am from the local area. I grew up in Dollar Bay, Michigan. I'm still living there. And I did my undergrad at Michigan Tech. I studied accounting. And from there, once I graduated, I really loved the Michigan Tech community. I still do, and so I knew that I wanted to maintain my involvement with the campus and the campus community. So I was looking for some jobs after graduation, and there was actually one in the department. At that time, it was the Office Assistant 5 position. And honestly, I didn't really know much about international programs and services. I was like, here's an opportunity for me. It was a good opportunity to get my foot in the door, and so I applied for the position, and it ended up being the best thing ever. It's kind of like those things where you make a split decision that you're hoping it goes well, and then it ends up being one of the best things you could have done. And so from that, I'm doing my master's as well now on campus in business administration. So that kind of, my involvement with IPS kind of turned away my career goals and my professional goals, because I do love this career. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Awesome.
And I have been in IPS since October 2020. So we're going on 5 years this year. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
Awesome.
And what about you, Christian? How did you get here?
I am very new to this role. I'm just hitting a year with IPS. I'm the director of IPS. Excuse me. And I started my career back in Florida. I am originally a native of Ecuador, and I did my undergrad at Florida International University in literature, and with a specific emphasis on Hispanic and Latino assimilation stories and African American slave narratives. And from there, I went to law school. I moved to Michigan. I lived in Lower Michigan in Grand Rapids for 16 years, getting my law degree. And after that, I worked for a firm doing immigration work before opening up my own practice 11 years ago. So I've been an attorney for almost 15 years before I decided to take the plunge and really change a little bit my career. In 2018, I started teaching law for another university downstate, and I teach immigration law and asylum and refugee law. And so this position came up Michigan Tech was looking for an IPS director. It was this kind of perfect marriage of the two things that I'd been doing, which is law practice and teaching. And so I decided to take the plunge and do it. Quite honestly, I had never worked with international students in this capacity before, and so I was very excited to be able to kind of have a new chapter in my life. So I'm very excited to work for the department. I think it's such a great department. We have great people that work there, and I'm very happy.
Definitely. It sounds like your background, too, definitely helps a lot with the role, and it kind of brings things full circle, because I know before you started, we didn't really have much of a level of expertise on that side of things in the law.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for your help with that part.
No, thank you, because quite honestly, this world is very new, even though I know the legal world for immigration quite well. But you have been quite an asset, quite honestly, being the our senior advisor scholar, quite honestly, in the office. You know all the ins and outs of IPS. And so I'm so glad that we were able to collaborate and do this podcast, because I think we have the best of both worlds in it.
Definitely.
What about you, Farida? Farida's our producer. She's our student worker. We love her. This is also a labor of love for her as well. She is not only an international student, but she is also working on her master's degree. And she is helping us with this. So we are so excited to have her. But producer, I was going to call you. Farida, tell us a little bit about you. What's your background? What brought you to Michigan Tech?
Thank you, Christian. So like Christian already mentioned, my name is Farida, and I am a Ghanaian. I came to Michigan Tech December 2024, and I'm currently doing my master's in biological sciences. I have a background in physician assistantship, and if I'm being completely honest, I was curious about the Northern Lights. It was one of the main reasons why I chose this university, because when I did my...
It's a good place for it.
Yeah, when I did my research. As I run research institution, I also wanted to see the U.S. from the Michigan Tech lens. So yes, so that's what brought me here. And I've been working with IPS for the past 5 months, and it's been nothing short of wonderful. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we do with this podcast.
We didn't make her say that, by the way. Just in case people are asking. It's not that.
I'm sitting here looking at her like a proud mom. I'm like, we love you. But yeah, you made a good point about the Northern Lights, too, because that's another part of this podcast. And obviously we'll talk more about that towards the end. But there's a lot of things that we want to cover on here. And I think little things like that, the places to go, the things to see, we definitely want to communicate that information to the community. So it's a good idea that you brought that up, because that's something that we're hopefully planning on doing.
And to get this episode really kick-started, we sent out a Google form asking, we knew we wanted to do our first episode to be kind of a get-to-know-us episode. If you see us around the office, you see us around campus, but maybe we don't have a chance to really dive into who we are or talk about our backgrounds or some fun little questions that you guys have thrown our way. But we're going to throw it over to Farida, who is going to ask us these questions that came from you. We did not create any of these questions, so we have no idea what they are. And Farida is going to surprise us with them with what you want to know about us. So, Farida, what is the first question?
Okay, so one of the most asked questions was, what was a country that you were most impressed by that you traveled to?
Well, I guess for me, I haven't been up until this point very much of a world traveler. But now that I'm in the position, I'm like, oh, you're from London? I'll be there next. Or, things like that. So now I have ideas of where to go. But I actually have been to London, so it's kind of bad to use that as an example. But London was really nice. I met up with some friends there. It was really cool to see a lot of the, typical tourist attractions, like the London Eye, Big Ben, things like that. And obviously you probably see on social media and the news and things that Brits, they look down on Americans in some certain
Oh,
way,
no.
And so, like, it was funny because one of the places that I went to was the London Dungeon, which was basically a historical thing. They talked about different events that happened in London's history, and at one point in time, they were asking some people where they were from, and I was like, the United States, and he's like, oh, get out of here. And so it was kind of funny, but I also felt very, very outnumbered because it was mostly, English people. But yeah, it was just a lot of fun. I actually got to see Buckingham Palace as well, and we were there when the guards were changing over.
Ooh.
And instead of, it's not just a casual, quick, like, walk out, walk in, like, they do a whole ceremony, and it's just really cool. So yeah, I think I would pick London probably.
Awesome. I really want to go to London. I haven't had the opportunity to go. And quite honestly, when I was just now listening to you talk about it, I'm like, where have I been? Where do I like? I will say I have had the opportunity to visit a few countries, not a ton, but a few. And I think my favorites so far, they all have really beautiful things about them. I think if I could go back to one right now, or one that really stood out, would be Japan. I got the privilege to go twice in my life. And it's just such a beautiful country. The people are very, very kind. It's very clean. It's very safe. And I just had a really wonderful time. I love the history of Japan, excluding, some things here and there with the wars. But they've really been able to, in my eyes at least, uplift themselves a little bit and create this whole new culture that really we see around the United States quite a bit. So I love the food.
Yes.
I love the food. Frida, what's next?
So some of the students wanted to know some fun facts about you too. So I think we'll start with Jamie.
Ooh, fun facts.
I know we already kind of talked about our background and how we ended up in IPS, and obviously Christian, this is more of his wheelhouse and it's connected, but not about me personally, but I guess one of my fun facts could be more on the professional end. So my fun fact would be that when I joined the department in 2020, I didn't even know what an F visa was.
Oof.
So obviously, so I've come a long way. But yeah, it's like obviously, a majority of our international student population are on F visas. So it was a lot to learn. But I think it's kind of interesting because people just kind of assume I have all this background or that my degree was in something international studies related, but I kind of just ended up here by chance, and now, like I said, I kind of want to flip it around and keep going through this path. So
Awesome. I can't think of a fun fact right now when I'm sprung on this question, but if I'll stick to what you've said, something professional-wise, something career-wise. And I don't know if it's a fun fact, but I did not want to be an attorney, and I did not want to do immigration law. I just happened to sort of fall into it. During my last year in law school, I needed some elective classes that were easy, and I went into the immigration law class, and I hated it, quite honestly. But it was the first time that I sat in a law class that I really enjoyed and understood. And that got me very curious to keep going. And that was one of the really interesting parts. I looking back, I can't believe that that's the moment that my life shifted career-wise. But other than that, I can move my ears, too. That's another fun fact. So just in case. If I see you out there, don't ask me to do it. But I can do it. I can do it.
See, that's a funny point because normally my go-to would always be like, oh, a fun fact about me, I'm left-handed. But now I'm like, Christian's left-handed.
I'm left-handed, too. Yeah. It really is. It really is.
Come on.
I agree. I agree. Left-hand power for sure.
Exactly.
Those are very interesting fun facts. We move on to the next question, which is, what has been your favorite part of working in IPS?
Quite honestly, there's been a lot. I'm still adjusting to it. I'm new to the area. Like I said, I lived in Lower Michigan in Grand Rapids for 16 years before moving here. I've only lived here for a year. And I really love the community. I think that that's a really common thing for people to say, and I really think it's true. At least the Michigan Tech community has been very welcoming to me. I love also how welcoming IPS has been to me. I came in here, even though I have this expertise in immigration law, they didn't treat me as that. It was still, and I don't treat them with that sort of arrogance that I don't want them to think that I have, because I'm not that kind of person. This is a whole new area and field for me, so I'm always asking them, thank you for teaching me, help me learn all these things, and just being very gracious when I do those things, because it is something completely brand new. I have dealt with students before, but in this capacity, it's a little bit different. I have to sort of remove the attorney side of myself with the director role. And so I really love all of it. I think that we have a really strong team at IPS, and at the core of that really is we're all extremely different. And you will meet some of them as we go along in the podcast, but I think the core value that we all have is that we want to help the students. And that's what we do every single day that we wake up and take over our roles, is ensuring that our international students are supported and seen and heard and valued. What about you, Jamie?
Yeah, and I mean, talking about the students, that is, one of the main things. That is my favorite part of the job, is the students, the scholars, our international community. I know I mentioned that prior. I didn't really have much travel adventures or experiences, but now after meeting people, seeing pictures of their hometowns and their countries, it's like opening my eyes to the rest of the world, because everyone is so nice when they come to see us. And I know a lot of them, towards the end of their time here, they think of us as like their home away from home, and that's really nice too. And so, yeah, it's kind of nice to hear about everyone's backgrounds. And now that I've been in the department for almost 5 years, it's to the point now where I'm seeing people the first day they check in to now seeing them graduate. And so now I can kind of see their full life cycle as a student. And, just personally, too, we see people get married, they show us their wedding pictures, or they bring in their baby. And it's just exciting. Everyone is like a second family, and it really is a good community, not just tech in general, but our department as well. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the next question is, what do you like about the Holton area?
Jamie, since you have lived in this area your whole life, what, and I want to add to this question because I feel like we had an idea of some of the questions that might be coming in, some kind of basic questions that we kind of assumed would be coming in. But to add to that, what is your favorite thing? But since you are a native of the area, have you found that you have new favorite things as you get older, as you've lived here more and more throughout your life?
Yeah, so I guess first, starting off what I like about the area, we talk a lot about community, and obviously our area is very small, so it's a very close-knit community. And I mean, although some people see it as a negative, where you go into Walmart and you see 20 people it also is a good thing, because it's familiar. The people that especially me, like the people I've grown up with, are still here too. So we see each other 10 years out of high school graduation and things like that. So I really like that. The weather, even though the winter is very long, we may or may not be talking about the weather in the future podcast. Even though the winters can somewhat be a little brutal, I do like the fact that we do see all 4 seasons in Michigan, whereas, other places they'll only see summer. And even though some of the seasons are a little less than the others, it's still nice to see the fall colors and the snow and have beach days. So I would say that. And then in terms of anything new that I've discovered, I mean, that's hard, but honestly, I think because my job in IPS, a lot of our students are very adventurous. They want to learn new things. And so there's been things that I've heard about, or like places that they've been to that I haven't even heard about, and I've lived here my whole life. So I think that's kind of cool as well.
Yeah.
But also picking up on maybe some things that they do. Like Formula One is obviously like the car racing, and I had never heard of that. And I know other people in America probably have. But until I had my job and people were talking about it, I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, I guess again, shout out to our students for opening my eyes to new experiences too.
I love that too. And like I said, I'm new in town. I've only been here a year, but I think that my favorite thing other than to piggyback off of what Jamie said, which is the community and the students and all of that, and even the weather. Quite honestly, I made it through my first winter, and I don't know how, but I see the value now in this beautiful weather that we have currently because we work so hard to get there. And I'm not an outdoorsy person or someone that skis or anything like that, so it was quite of a challenge. But I think my biggest takeaway from this year, insofar as what I love about the community and Houghton in general, is how peaceful it feels. I'm originally from Ecuador, a big city in Ecuador, to being raised in Miami, Florida, which is a big city, to Grand Rapids, which is not as big a city as those other two, but still a city within its rights. To coming to Houghton has been quite a culture shock, which is foreshadowing what we'll talk about later on in our podcast. But just kind of how much people here really love and value life. It's not so quick. You get there, you work, you're done, and then you just kind of go to sleep and wake up, and it's the same cycle over and over and over again. There's a lot of life here to be lived, and it's not just a work-focused environment, which I really value, especially, getting a little older in my life. I'm going to be 40 this year. It's nice to kind of wind down a little bit, take a step back, and really enjoy kind of a lot of what the earth has for us. And I think that this is the perfect place for that.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I tell people too. It's like, if you want Starbucks, this isn't the place for you. But if you want to see beautiful waterfalls, mountains, like, it's around every corner here. Like, it's so nice in this area. And that's another reason why I said the seasons, because every season has its own beauty to offer. So,
Yeah, and to add up to that, I think the fall colors is just one of the reasons why I chose MTU.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, but so we move on to the next question, which is, what perceptions you have about international students?
Yeah, so before I joined the department, I know that a lot of people look at international students coming over to the United States to come to Michigan Tech, and people think it's easy. They're like, oh, no problem. But after working in this position, I've seen the obstacles and the hurdles that all of our students go through, and I just have such a newfound respect for our students and everything that they do to better themselves and have an education and everything. It's a lot. People leave their kids back home. They leave their parents, who are getting older, or, illnesses in the family. It's not like you can hop in your car and get there in 10 minutes. You have to go all the way across the world. So, it's definitely not easy. And I give everyone a lot of credit, because I mentioned my London trip, and I was gone for about 3.5 weeks. And I think I was still in the initial, adrenaline portion of it, but thinking of it afterwards, I'm like, I could not do that for 4 years, sometimes up to 6 or 7, So, definitely a lot of respect, because a lot of things go into moving across the world.
I agree. I think that goes with my perception as well. And it's not a perception that I have, and I don't think it's a perception, and I know it's not a perception that you have, but it's a perception that I think that the community has as in general, which is, the first thing is that it's hard to be an international student. But that's not the perception. The perception is that because our international students maybe look different, act different, sound different, then there is a level of being uneducated. And I try to talk about this quite a lot when I teach life at Tech, where I tell the international students, this is a perception that exists, not maybe with everybody, but it is a perception that exists. But you have made it to Michigan Tech amidst so many odds, right? Having to go through the immigration process, having to leave your friends and family, having to leave people that rely on you, to make it to, like Farida said, an R1 institution, a very, very difficult school to do well in. But at the same time, you have this perception looming over you that you have to bypass in every single classroom and every single interaction that you have with people, which is kind of this notion of them looking down on you. And I try to uplift them in saying, you made it here, and that is a feat in and of itself, with also the burden of, and not the burden, but with the difficulty and the challenge of having left so much behind too, to come to this new country that you may not know anything about, right? And so there is that perception, and I do tell the community in general to give our international students the same level of difficulty that you would with any other domestic student, but have a little bit of grace with them, because they're going through a huge acclimation period. And so I didn't have necessarily a perception of international students, but I do see that one constantly playing out, that our department really works hard at supporting the students so that they feel empowered to self-advocate and talk for themselves, and not feel belittled by that perception, because it just comes from lack of knowledge, right? What do you think, Farida?
I think you both just said it all.
Yeah.
Actually, too, thinking about it, it's like our international community, they persevere through every obstacle that comes at them, but since they are here on an F visa or a J visa, they have additional restrictions that a domestic student wouldn't. So, like, financially, you can't work anywhere. You have very specific rules and regulations that you have to follow, and still they find a way to get through it, get their degrees, become doctors, or whatever their path is. So, yeah, again, it kind of ties back into what I said earlier about there's just a lot of respect. So, looking at you, Farida.
And Houghton is expensive.
Yeah, it is.
I did not think, that's a perception I had of Houghton, not of our international students, which was, I thought it would be more affordable than Grand Rapids, and it is not. So more praise to our international students who hustle hard, who work hard, not only in tech, but with all the regulations, like you said, that they're placed in. And so we have nothing but respect for them.
Thank you.
Except Farida.
Okay, we move on to the next question, which is, what has been your experience working with international students? And what would you consider the best moments working with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I already kind of touched on it with my other answer, is just now I'm at a point where I'm seeing the full life cycle of them as a student, and we become a part of their family. And so even though, and it's really cool, and this actually happened during the most recent graduation, is I was walking through the SDC when all the students were out after graduation saying congratulations to our fellow students, and one of them was like, I wouldn't have been able to do this if it wasn't for IPS. And I'm like, this was all on you. But it's something that we do on a day-to-day basis that we think is just a small part of our workday. But some of the things that we do and help these students with, it changes their whole life. And so for him to say that was super sweet. But it's like, you don't realize how much of an impact we have on them, but also they have an impact on us too. So
I agree. I think that we come to tech, we go to IPS every single day. We do our daily to-dos. We kind of know the kind of questions that come in every time students come in. We know the issues that come in. Even after just being here a year, I get a good idea of the flow of what comes in and out. And I know that Jamie feels that same way. But I think that when we are able to kind of step away from ourselves and see that impact that we do have, even doing little things like travel signatures, just signing away that somebody can travel internationally, which means that they get to go home, right? And that's such a breath of fresh air for them. It's so great for their mental health. And we took part in that as well, even if it was this small part. Two things come to mind for me with the experience is now I see students recognize who I am, and that's such a nice feeling, not because I'm arrogant or anything, but just that they know who I am and we've made that connection. But the second one, which is quite strange, and not strange in the best of ways, is I've had two students approach me about wanting to pursue law. And it's based off of that interaction that they've had with me. And and so it's just really nice to have them start thinking about these things that are, outside of this box that they have also created for themselves. coming from like Farida, using her as an example, a place like Ghana, where she, before she got here, had an idea of maybe what she wanted to do. And now seeing new opportunities come about, right? I don't foresee, or I don't know, but maybe she never thought she'd be in an IPS podcast or creating a podcast or being a producer of a podcast. And I see that with them. I just see their eyes kind of open up with new experiences. Even if they stick with their same path, that's wonderful, but they're able to see all these different facets of life that they can grab onto and really do something with. So I love that.
Yeah. And definitely the position as well, or the department, it's like I've been here for how long and I still feel like I learn something new every day. Like things are always changing. There's always different situations that come up. But yeah, I definitely agree with all of that as well.
Okay, so to wrap up the questions, considering all the experiences that you've had, would you do this all over again?
I think we both would.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we both would.
I can tell you I would not do my undergrad in accounting. I would maybe go more focused. I mean, it's fine now, but I mean, definitely starting, it was during COVID. So I was being trained actually over Zoom. And I do a lot of the processing for my position. So that was definitely a hurdle. And plus, it was just brand new stuff. Like, she'd be like, does this make sense? And I'm like, yeah. And then I'd go and do it. And I'm like, what does this mean again? But yeah, I would 100%.
I would too. Like I said, I haven't been here for very long. But if I'm looking at it from the lens of my entire career, down to deciding on law, moving to Michigan by myself, I didn't know anybody, to having this extensive career in immigration law, and then ultimately taking on this role, I would definitely do it again and move to Houghton. And like I said, it's the start of a great new chapter, not only for myself, but I think also for IPS. We're fully staffed, which hasn't happened in a little bit, and we're loving it. We're loving it, and we're here to serve you. But I think that is the end of the questions.
But they might be wondering what's next. That might be another question to talk about.
What is coming up?
Yeah, and so like you mentioned, we're here to serve our students. We're trying to figure out the best ways to bring out information, bring out experiences, and that's what this podcast is all about. If you are on our email list, you've probably already seen some emails come out regarding what you want to hear about on the podcast. And before each podcast, we will send out another Google form for you to ask questions like we answered today. And so there's a few things that we already have on deck for our plans for our next episodes. One of them being culture shock. I know we touched on that a little bit, but in that episode, and we would love to have volunteers. So if you do want to be on our podcast, become famous, maybe, be sure to let us know. And like culture shock, we would love to hear some international students talk about what it's like for them. Because like I said, I've lived here my whole life, so I don't know what it's like to not be from here, and it is shocking, for a lot of people. But other than that, we'll touch on other things throughout the year. Parade of Nations is a big event that our department does, and so I think we'll do that when it gets closer to the time.
Yeah, and we also just want to reiterate that this is just the start of this incredible series that we're launching, where it's not just going to be the information that you get walking into the IPS office. Of course, we're going to have the ability for you to access that kind of information. We will be talking about where you can work, how you can work, F1 regulation, CPT, OPT, all the things that you do want to know. But we wanted to expand this a little bit more than we're able to in the office. And that really is where Jamie's thinking was when this was created, of having and creating an avenue where we can talk about a lot of other things, right? Things going on in the world, things going on in the immigration situation, in the immigration scene, the political scene, what's going on in Houghton, right? Resources that you can find in Houghton, and also getting some great interviews with people that you may never stumble upon, right? So we have that in the works. We're very, very excited to continue this. And yeah.
And the podcast will always be here, too. So that's kind of what's nice.
It'll always be here.
You can stop into our office, which we always love to see everyone, but sometimes you'll talk to someone in person about questions you have and then walk out the door and forget right away. But obviously, posting a podcast on these different platforms, you can go back and listen whenever you'd like, or listen to the episodes that are most relevant to your current situation. But yeah, we are just very, very excited for what's to come.
We're so excited, and we will hope, we won't hope, but we will hope that you will stick around with us and be here for our next episode. And our hope is, I think, that we're going to get these out maybe once a month, every few weeks. Jamie and I will be out for a conference later in the month, so that we can represent. Where can we go? So
Bye.
definitely join us for our next episode of Talk-a-latte with Jamie and Christian.
Yes, and we will talk to you next time.
We'll see you then.
Bye.